We're here with Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. And Stephen, while Alabama and Clemson has become a bit of a postseason rivalry, and for good measure, they have met in more meaningful games than any two schools over this college football playoff era. From a more historic standpoint, I don't know that you could get the combination of the history, the legacy, the traditions, the prestige, and just the winning brands together that would be more dominant than these two. I think they're the two marquee programs when you combine the current state and landscape of college football with the historic when you match up Alabama and Ohio State. So let's go to the matchups and let's go into the trenches, because that's really where the Buckeyes took it to Clemson with an offensive line display that was just overwhelming. And on the defensive front, especially from the tackle position, able to completely shut down Travis Etienne and push the pocket in the face of Trevor Lawrence. So this is going to be a titanic battle in the trenches on both sides.
Absolutely. And starting this thing off for Ohio State's defense, the Buckeyes coming in, you didn't really know if they had guys that were quick twitch edge rushers on the outside. But against Clemson, those guys stepped up. You talk about rip moves, swim moves, bull rush moves, getting into the pads of offensive linemen, getting around those guys. And not only did they affect Trevor Lawrence, Mark, they ripped the ball from him. You talk about fumble after forced fumble after forced fumble. They really aggravated Trevor. They agitated him. They put him on the ground. They created turnovers. They made Travis Etienne a non-factor. I've never seen Trevor Lawrence look as uncomfortable as I saw him look against Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. Now, of course, when he faced LSU last year in the national title game, there was some uncomfortability there. But against Ohio State, that group really put it on Trevor, really put it on Travis Etienne, and bullied its way against that offensive line. For Alabama in this game, the group of Chris Owens, Alex Leatherwood, Emil Ekiyor, the whole group, Deontay Brown, that entire offensive line from left to right there, they have got to keen in on keeping a clean pocket for Mac Jones. They got to keen in on keeping that pocket clean. But not just that, fitting those runs for Najee Harris to have success. Because going back to the game, yes, Najee Harris had a big game, but there were also moments where Notre Dame was able to kind of stalemate the Alabama offensive line and not allow those run fits to be opened up where Najee could probably get even more yards. So for this Alabama offensive line, got to consistently keep a clean pocket for Mac Jones, and as often as possible, open up those opportunities for Najee Harris, because Ohio State showed against Clemson, they've got the dogs to not just stop the run, but they got the dogs to consistently affect the quarterback, the passing game, and create turnovers where that is concerned too. Offensively, for Ohio State, their ability to protect Justin Fields in that pocket, allowing him to have a 6-touchdown performance, despite the fact that he did take a shot there from Stowski, the Clemson linebacker, and had some issues there with his ribs. Alabama's defense in this game, the likes of Christian Barmore, Will Anderson, Chris Allen, among others, have to constantly get to Justin Fields, whether it's Barmore on the defensive line, Will Anderson at jack linebacker, Christopher Allen at the strong side backer position, finding any way possible to get to Justin Fields, affect Justin Fields, not allowing him to feel comfortable, not only in the pocket, but when he tries to extend the plays on the run, get to him, come to him with intensity, finish the play, wrap up, hit him, get to him. And then along with that, being able to fit those runs and attacking Trey Sermon before he's able to get going. So absolutely, Mark. Offensive line, defensive line, this will be a battle of the big men. The big men will dictate this game.
And when we go to the skill position players, and specifically wide receivers against secondary, with all due respect to Clemson, they recruit at an elite level at those positions, of course, but they were a bit downgraded and have been for the last couple of years at the wide receiver position, not receiving quite the productivity and just the elite play that they had been prior to that, where Alabama, I don't think there's any question, has the top wide receiver core in the nation, led by the very best, and of course, Devontae Smith. And Ohio State, of course, these are the two leading recruiting teams year in, year out across the board. And it becomes the most fun for the standard basic football fan to watch elite wide receiver play against tremendous secondary play.
Definitely. And especially when you look at what Ohio State and wide receivers been able to have this year with Chris Olave, and not just him, that they have multiple other guys, but just the confidence that Justin Fields has in Chris Olave and a couple of other guys, especially they got some players there at tight end that were able to get open and catch passes and create, matchup issues for Clemson. But then for Alabama, just the number of different receivers have come to this program, whether it was Julio Jones in the past or Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, and last year you had the likes of Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle. And now you look at Devontae Smith, Waddle, John Mechie. Both programs have been able to stockpile talent at the wide receiver position, but they've also been able to stockpile talent in the secondary. Ohio State with Sean Wade in that defensive backfield. Alabama's got Patrick Surtain, a first-round pick. Josh Jobe, who is a physical defensive back. Jordan Battle, who's played well this year. You look at Malachi Moore, who's been a phenomenal freshman, along with Brian Branch. So both programs at the wide receiver position and the defensive secondary, talent galore on both ends. The biggest question will be here, Mark, will be the physicality in both spots. How physical will Ohio State's DBs play Alabama's receivers? How physical will Alabama's DBs play Ohio State's receivers? And then for both teams' receiving cores, how quick can either one of these two receiving cores get off the ball, create separation, not allow itself to be jammed up by defensive backs, and how quickly can either one of these two receiving cores work back to the quarterback, find the holes in the zone, and make those big plays.
And then finally, Stephen, there's the psychological. And for Alabama, they have been here time after time after time after time. For Ohio State, certainly they're not unaccustomed to the big stage. But under Ryan Day, of course, this is a second go-around in the college football playoff, and they poured so much of themselves into that effort and that rematch against Clemson, coming back from what you well know to be a game last year that they very much felt to be the better team and wanted justification and vindication for their effort last year, in which they left the field believing that they were the better team, and then working so hard to get back to this point and just exhausting themselves against Clemson, and maybe that being a bit of a concern in the Buckeye camp that they just put so much into that game that to be able to gather themselves and stand up to another big time matchup could be difficult. Whereas Alabama, I don't want to discredit the effort against Notre Dame, but certainly didn't have to exhaust themselves to the degree that Ohio State did in the semifinal.
Both teams are real. The psychological on both teams, Mark, and you brought up Ohio State. When you look at what the comments that Dabo Swinney made of Clemson prior to that game, it got under the skin of Ryan Day. It got under the skin of that entire team. They felt like last year they should have won that game, and Ohio State should have won that game. Unfortunately, it did not happen. They came back this time around. They put up almost 50 points on a Brent Venables defense. Justin Fields had an incredible showing. Trey Sermon went off in that game. Chris Olave over 100 yards receiving. Defensively, they got to Trevor Lawrence. They frustrated him. They frustrated Dabo Swinney. That was a complete, utter domination there by the Ohio State Buckeyes, Ryan Day and Justin Fields. So that they came in to that matchup against Clemson with a huge chip on their shoulder because they felt like we should have won the game last year. And after the comments made by Coach Sweeney on how we're just the 11th best team in the country, well, we'll show him by beating up on his team.